All right. So we'll begin. We just prayed for Rabbi Schtenzel, so I feel it's appropriate to begin with this first question. Dear Rabbi, we received your emails about Rabbi Schtenzel's hospitalization, and our prayers and wishes are with you, his family, all of his students, and the entire Jewish world. In the merit of Rabbi Schtenzel, can you please share with us what we should do to hasten his recovery? Also, can you share with us some teachings that come to mind from Rabbi Schtenzel that he has shared with you over the years? So good questions. First, what can we do to hasten his recovery? Second, some teachings that come to mind. Of the thousands and thousands of teachings, I could be here all night and all day. But just I'll share with you whatever may come to mind, whatever Hashem plants in my mind for the moment. But let me first answer the first question. What can we do to hasten his recovery? So we are taught that prayer helps. Prayer from the heart, no doubt, helps. What prayer in particular? The book of Psalms. Any really chapter from the book of Psalms has the power to open up all of the gates of heaven. There are particular Psalms that are Psalms of healing, like the Psalm that we just read, Psalm 20, Psalm 121, Psalm 130, Psalm 13. In fact, if you go to any book of Psalm, most book of Psalms have a list of the Psalms that one should say for a person's full and speedy recovery. And you can say those Psalms. In addition to Psalms, of course, any mitzvah that one does in the merit of someone else also brings tremendous merit to that other person and helps his healing. Why? Because mitzvahs create light. And when we are faced with darkness, the only response we know as Jews is light. And if mitzvahs create light, then we hope that the light of our mitzvah will expel this darkness of the disease and bring about the person that we are praying for a full and speedy recovery. So any mitzvah that you can take upon yourself, a mitzvah that you don't yet do, maybe a mitzvah that you have always dreamt to do, but you haven't had the chance yet, maybe now's the time in honor of Rabbi Schtenzel. And last but not least, when we are praying for someone in particular, or the question, of course, is about Rabbi Schtenzel, and we have to ask ourselves, what is Rabbi Steinsaltz's main life goal? And we have to ensure to continue the life goal and bolster it so that, again, strengthens him in a spiritual way when he knows that people are participating in his life goal, in his life project. It strengthens him. He feels it spiritually, no doubt, and that also brings about his health. Now, what is Rabbi Steinsaltz's life goal? And his slogan is, let my people know. To teach Torah, to learn Torah, and to teach Torah, to make it as accessible as possible, even to the most assimilated Jew. And there's no limit to that. If you know Aleph, you ought to teach Aleph. You don't need to wait to be a scholar, a teacher, a rabbi, an educator, whatever it is, to be able to teach Torah. Anyone and everyone should be able to teach Torah because, again, we all know something about Torah. And again, if you know Aleph, teach Aleph. And that's what Rabbi Schtenzel wants us to do. And no doubt, that's what we should continue to do in order to strengthen him spiritually, which will then affect also his physical state. So those are three things to do to hasten his speedy recovery. Teachings that come to mind that Rabbi Schtenzel has taught me over the years, it's interesting because many of his teachings were outside of the books, were from life itself. And I can go on and on. Maybe a teaching about, by the way, for his birthday, which was just over a week ago, I wrote 5 major teachings, and you can Google that article and find those teachings. But those were just 5. In addition to that, I was driving with him in New York City. Again, I'm just going to say what's coming to mind. I was driving with him in New York City, and he points out to the pigeons and the ravens. He says those are the only birds that survived New York. There used to be many other birds in New York, but now when you drive around New York, all you can see is pigeons and ravens. And he says, I wonder why they survived. He said, maybe it's because those are the birds that Noah sent from his ark. They were the first ones in this world, and they'll be the last ones in this world. And then he said, the ravens are probably the cleverest of the birds, but they're also known to be very cruel to the young. And he learned an immediate lesson from that. He says, you see, when you're clever, it doesn't immune you from being cruel. I know a lot of very clever people that have not too many human qualities, and that may be cruel. Intelligence does not immune you to anything. That was a brilliant teaching. Another teaching was walking with him once, and he said, that a very long time ago when he was a young boy, his friend fell in love with a girl. And this girl started to write him letters. The problem was that he couldn't write any letters. He didn't have that talent. So he asked Rabbi Schtenzel to write the letters on his behalf. And he said for many months he was writing letters to a girl he did not know. And she was writing letters to a girl that she thought she knew, to a boy that she thought she knew, but of course it wasn't him. And then he again drew a beautiful lesson from that. He said, you see, a lot of people have that type of relationship with God. We pray, we send letters, but to really get to know that person, to have that burning desire, who am I writing to? That not many people have. And the goal in life is to create a veritable connection with God. We can't just be writing letters to a girl that we don't know. We have to pray, yes, but we have to pray with that yearning of wanting to connect, wanting to know who's on that other side, to know what relationship I'm having, and most importantly, with whom. That's the type of relationship we should be having. Another lesson that comes to mind, it's a lesson that he shared at Yale University. I think that was one of the 5 lessons. But when a professor there, he had a dialogue with a big law professor. And when he asked him, what is the purpose of life? He shared the beautiful story of also when he was a young boy. He said he must have been 6 or 7 years old. He was in a bus in Jerusalem, where he was born and raised and lived his entire life. By the way, not too long ago, the mayor of Jerusalem gave him a very exclusive award, the award of Yakir Yerushalayim, which means a dear member of Jerusalem. It's given to only one person in Jerusalem each and every year, but Yakir Yerushalayim. But he was on this bus, and all of a sudden a bunch of girls come on this bus, and this girl that looked beautiful turned to him and gave him the most radiant smile. And Rabbi Schtenzel says that this girl probably will never remember who I am. She stepped out of the bus and forgot about me. I will forever remember who she is, and I'll never forget her smile. Here came a girl who stepped out of a social circle for just a little bit to share some light on this boy that she didn't even know, to cheer him up a little bit. And that changed in a way that engraved that precious memory in his mind, and in a way changed that day of his when he was just 6 or 7 years old. And sometimes that's what our purpose is, to step out of our comfort zone, smile at someone, bring some light and some joy to someone else, someone that we may not even know. That's what the purpose of human being is. Another lesson that comes to mind, I know there's so many, there's really so many. I'll just leave you with this one, and then we can move on to the rest of the questions. And if you want, we can get back to them afterwards. But I remember asking Rabbi Schtenzel, I just mentioned this, if he likes being famous. And he said, no, I much prefer dark chocolate. Being famous doesn't bring me anything. And then in that vein, I asked him, do you ever read what people write about you? Of course, he's world famous. So people wrote about him negatively and positively all the time. Time magazine called him a once in a millennium scholar. Newsweek called him genius of the highest order, type of mind that comes around once in 1,000 years, or once every 2,000 years, or something like that. But do you ever read what people write about you? And he responded brilliantly. He said, no. I said to him, why? He said to me, because if it's true, I already know it. And if it's not true, then why read a lie? Here's a man with a healthy self-esteem who knew exactly how to use his time and not fall into or be, sucked into all the lies of the media. Anyhow, I can go on and on and on, but these are just a few that come to mind. I don't know why specifically those. but those are the thoughts that came to mind tonight. Ask me tomorrow, other teachings will come to mind surely. All right,
Rabbi
next question.
Can I just say something
Yes.
real quick about Rabbi Schtenzel? So yesterday I was studying with my Rebbitzin from Chicago, from Chabad. And I did not know this, but one of the women from Chabad, her granddaughter was very sick. So she went to see Rabbi Schtenzel, and she's Israeli. Her name is Sarah Efrat. And he told her to change her name. And she changed it to Efrat. It's Efrat Efron. And if you write it in Hebrew and you turn it, it's Refuah. So can you comment on, I know you have other questions, but can you comment about this thing of changing names to help when somebody's sick? And Rabbi Schtenzel was the one that told her to do it.
Sure, it's a different question, but I'll relate to it very shortly. I mean, the name of a person really is the reflection of his soul. That's why we say that when a baby is born, the parents of that baby are endowed with a prophetic spirit to be able to name their child, because God will give them that name, the parents that name that relates to the soul and to the mission of the child the most. That's what a name is. Now, when a person is sick, maybe it's because his mission has either been completed, or maybe it's also because his mission is not reflected well in the name that he currently has. Therefore, we add another name. Usually the name that we add is a name that deals with healing or with life in general. Chaim sometimes is added. And the reason for that, again, is in order to enhance the mission of the soul and bolster it. And then in of itself gives health to the person and enables him to continue on his mission in this world. But that's a very brief answer to your question. But yes, Rabbi Schtenzel has given blessings to many individuals, some of them in our community too, and some are not in our community. I remember how we have a dear member who joined us not too long ago, moved from Chicago, I believe also, but he told me that he's moving here with his 3 girls, or he has 3 boys. I think so. And I asked him, you don't have any goals? He said, no, but I blame a rabbi in Jerusalem that I don't have any goals. I said, what? Why? He said, because there's this rabbi who gave me a blessing. And when my wife and I couldn't have children for a long time, he gave me a blessing that I should be blessed with boys. And I should have asked for girls, but I didn't ask for girls. Boys were born, but girls, he did not say, so they were not born. I said, who was this rabbi? He said, Rabbi Schtenzel. But more than his blessings, we need his wisdom, we need his mere presence in this world. And therefore, let's return to those 3 things that we mentioned and do our best to hasten his recovery. All right, friends, let's continue with the questions. Dear Rabbi, this week was Tu B'Av, the festival of love. I've been trying to fall in love and find my bashert for a very long time now, but I'm still searching. What's the secret to love? So indeed, it was Tu B'Av, just yesterday, on Tuesday night, and Wednesday was the 15th of Av. It's called the Festival of Love, because as the Talmud states, in the times of the temple, the bachelorettes of the Jewish people would go out to the fields and tell the bachelors, come and pick your future wife. And they would say to them, lift up your eyes and don't look at our physique or at our material appearance, physical appearance. Look at our souls and pick your future wife. That happened on the day of the 15th of Av, Tu B'Av, and therefore it is called the Festival of Love until this very day, even though this custom, I don't believe, exists anymore on this day at least. But this person here is asking, I've been trying to fall in love and find my bashert for a long time now, but I'm still searching. So maybe I should start with breaking 2 myths. Myth number 1 is the myth of falling in love. I don't believe in that myth. I don't think a person can really fall in love. Love takes years and years and years to develop. You can't just fall in love. What people refer to when they say they fall in love is maybe they fall in lust. Maybe they fall in some type of attraction. But that's certainly not love. Love comes after toil. Love is a muscle that we have to work on and work on and work on. Love in Hebrew is ahava, which in Aramaic means giving. You can't fall in love if you haven't given to the person yet. You have to give and give and give and give, and then love comes about. So don't wait to fall in love. That's myth number one. Myth number two is the myth of the bashert. I know what you're referring to when you say bashert. I mean, we all know the expression. It was made famous by, I think, the movie Yentl, where Barbara Streisand acts as a Jew, also is trying to fall in love. But the idea that we have a bashert may not be such a Jewish idea. And I heard this, by the way, from Rabbi Schtenzel too. That's because we spend so much time in trying to find someone who clicks with our soul. That's what a bashert is. Someone, I feel that's my mate. I was born to be with this person. That we forget to look at the real important elements that makes or breaks or make or break a marriage. And those elements do not include the element of the bashert. And what I refer to answer now your question is, yes, it's not, let me just clarify, it's not that I don't believe in soulmates. There are such things as soulmates. But very often we focus too much on a soul, on a feeling. Let me feel, it's almost like a drug. Let me get high. And then if I get high, then that must be the person for me, that we forget to look for the real things that make or break a marriage. What are the real things? Now to really answer the question, the real things are, number one, we should have common goals. That I think is tremendously important. When we try and find someone that we love and that we can build a life with, then we have to first and foremost make sure that our goals are aligned. If our goals are not aligned, then I think we'll have a very tough marriage. If I want to live in Arizona and that person wants to live in Israel, our goals are not aligned. It's going to create a conflict. If I want to keep Shabbat and my spouse does not want to keep Shabbat, that's going to create a conflict. If I want to send my children to a Jewish school and my spouse does not, this person that I'm meeting does not, those goals are not aligned. So if your goals are not aligned, it's going to invite more and more conflict, and it's going to create this dichotomy in the home that's going to be impossible to bear. So I think that's number one. Make sure that all of your goals, as many of your goals that you can list them, as many of your goals should be aligned. Number two, I think common values and interests. I think interests are less important. If I love art and my wife loves art, that's a great thing, because I think there's so many differences already between men and women. We are created, equally with the image of God, but certainly differently. Men and women are different. There's no doubt about it. I can tell you that with 9 children, I see the difference between my girls and my boys already from birth. They're just drawn to different things. My boys love trucks. My girls never played with trucks. But we can go on and on about this. But I think that there are many differences between men and women, and we don't have to add more to them. So if I have common interests with my spouse to be, that helps a lot. But I think the common values are very important. Again, if I want to incorporate values into my life, and my spouse to be, or that possible spouse does not see eye to eye with me, then it's going to create a conflict. And it's going to create an essential conflict, the conflict of values. And number 3, I do think you need, yes, maybe that's what you're referring to when you're saying bashert, you do need this attraction. I need to be attracted to the other. There needs to be some type of drawing of the heart, so to speak. Meshichat halev, as they call it in Hebrew. That, I think, is important. But those are the 3 elements one should look for, and I hope you're looking for as you're trying to find your spouse to be what you call is a basher. I think if we have those 3 elements, then love can start to emerge, develop itself, and with tremendous resilience, endurance, as Rabbi Schtenzel calls it, and discipline, commitment, then love can come about. I'll tell you this, that I have officiated at hundreds of weddings, and I will tell you this, that what moves me the most at weddings is certainly not the party and the disco and the dancing and the food and the flowers and the music. It's not even the look of the bride towards the groom or the groom towards the bride. It's not even a kiss. What moves me the most is to see the parents of the bride or the parents of the groom stand under the chuppah, and while the bond of their children are being forged together, they look at each other. Often the father will look at the mother, at his spouse, or the mother will look at his father, her spouse, and will have this tremendous feel or look of nachas, of true pride, of satisfaction. To me, that's love. After so many years of dedicating themselves to one another and to building this family and to raising this child and seeing now this child get married, then they look at each other and they say to each other, that look speaks volumes. And it almost says, oh, I think that we love each other now. I think we've achieved love. I think our love has gone a long way with this marriage. To me, that's love. That's the most moving sight in every marriage and every chuppah that I officiate, much more than the kiss of the bride and the groom, and so on and so forth, because they don't know what they're getting into. I don't know if they know what love is at that stage, but the parents surely do. Anyhow, that's to somehow encapsulate this thought into some type of image. All right, next question. Dear Rabbi, many of my friends who are in their 70s are making arrangements for their Jewish burials so that the burden won't fall on their children. Is this appropriate? So it's a good question. Should we buy a burial plot in our lifetime? Whether you're 7 years old or not, whether you're 30 years old, should you buy for yourself a burial plot? Or is there some omen that says that it's bad? So, it reminds me of the very bad joke. Maybe I shouldn't say it, but a bad joke about two friends who really loved each other. And one friend decided that for the birthday of his other friend, he would buy him a burial plot. So he bought him a burial plot for his birthday. The next year, he didn't buy him anything. And his friend said to him, well, last year you bought me such an expensive gift. I would have expected some type of a gift this year also from you. And his friend responded, well, last year I bought you a gift and you didn't use it. So why should I buy you another gift? But terrible joke. But so one may think that, buying a burial plot will precipitate, God forbid, the death of a person. Well, actually, our sages teach the exact opposite. And that is that when a person buys a burial plot, then it's a sgula l'arichut yamim, to quote them, which means it's good luck to have lengthy days, lengthy years. It almost prolongs your life. Now, why? The reason is not stated why. I can guess why. Guess number one is because, we are what we think in many ways. There is this big Kabbalistic notion that the power of the mind is very strong. If we think positively, it will give birth to positive actions. If we think negatively, it can give birth to negativity. Now, there is a very, very common and very natural fear among many, this fear of death. Oh, who knows when I will die? Now, when a person buys a burial plot, in a way, it relieves the person a little bit, saying, okay, I don't have to worry too much about my death. What will happen? Will my children buy me a burial plot, not buy me, or buy me a nice one, not nice one? So in a way, it relieves that fear a little bit. When that fear is relieved a little bit, then again, you have less negativity in your mind, and therefore less chances of any type of negativity being born from that fear. So that could be, that's a wild guess. Another guess of why it's a sgula l'arichut yamim, to buy a burial plot, enhances or prolongs your life, as the Midrash teaches. Also, the Talmud alludes to this. But maybe it's because of a different Talmudic statement that says that God decides each and every Rosh Hashanah how much money we'll make each and every year. And once God decided that, there's very little things that can change that. If God decided that I'll make $50,000 this year, that's what will be. Maybe our prayers can change that a little bit, but that's what will be. Now, the people that take care of the cemeteries, they make their parnasa, they make their livelihood by selling plots. Now, God decided how much money they'll make based on their plots that they'll be selling. Maybe God decided that they'll sell 50 plots this year. So what I want to do is try and participate in their livelihood, so that now when I buy a burial plot, all they have to do is sell 49 plots this year. And maybe because of me purchasing a plot, now having them get the parnasa as was inscribed on Rosh Hashanah, only 49 people will die this year and not 50. So maybe technically saving someone from death. Maybe that's another reason, in order to give that parnasa to the Chevra Kadisha, to those people of the cemetery, without having people die. So that the goal that God set for them on Rosh Hashanah is met without many deaths. That's another reason that is offered. But in any case, yes, to answer this question, yes, you should buy for yourself a burial plot if you can. It will prolong your life, as the Midrash said. All right, next question. Dear Rabbi, I've heard people say Chazaku Baruch after they've performed well in the synagogue. I've also heard people say Yasher Koach. So the question is, which is the right expression and why do we say it? So two expressions, that's right. I mean, if you've been to shul, you know. After someone receives an aliyah, after someone gave a good speech or whatever it is, we say Chazaku Baruch, we say Yasher Koach. The difference, by the way, is rooted in your background. If you're Sephardic, you say Chazaku Baruch. If you're Ashkenazic, you say Yasher Koach. In our beautiful eclectic synagogue, you'll hear both. Why? Because we're as inclusive as could be. Ashkenazic and Sephardic call CBT their home. And it's part of the beauty of our synagogue and of our community. So you'll hear both, Chazaku Baruch and Yasher Koach, and no wonder that you've heard both. Chazaku Baruch and Yasher Koach. What do they mean? And they basically mean the same thing. Chazaku Baruch means be strengthened and be blessed. Be strengthened and be blessed. And it really comes from the blessing that God gave Moses, and then Moses gave Joshua, his successor. Be strengthened and be blessed. And it's almost copying God's blessing and giving it to someone else. After, again, we want to empower him with leadership, like God was empowering Moses, and like Moses was empowering his successor. The root of Yasher Koach comes from a Rashi, a commentary of Rashi, the foremost French 11th century commentary, that speaks of how when Moses broke the tablets, God said to him, Yashar kochacha sheshibarta. Well done. May your strength also be aligned or be empowered, enhanced, because you broke the tablets. God was complimenting Moses for breaking the tablets. Why? That's a different story, a different question for a different day maybe. But again, we see God using that special blessing for Moses when he did a special mitzvah. Why was the breaking of the tablets a mitzvah? Again, we can get into that later on or a different time. So we emulate God and we give that blessing also to someone when a person says a mitzvah. Now, I want to go deeper into this. And that is that I think there's something very beautiful about saying Chazaku Baruch and Yasher Koach, not just because it's giving a compliment and a blessing to someone. That's nice all the time. And here in America, we do that for any stupid thing. I mean, you may come 10th in a race, you'll still get a trophy and we'll tell you Yasher Koach too. Fine, whether you agree with that or not, I personally don't. But compliments are showered with no reserve in this country. But there's something much more beautiful about just the idea of giving a compliment to someone, to Chazaku Baruch and Yasher Koach. And that is that we are not complimenting the person, we are complimenting his actions. And we're not complimenting just any action. We're complimenting the actions that ought to be complimented in Jewish life. What are the actions that ought to be complimented in Jewish life? Not the materialistic achievements. No, we don't say Yasher Koach and Chazaku Baruch for that. Not the physical performances, not the races of life. We don't say Chazaku Baruch and Yasher Koach for that. What do we say Chazaku Baruch and Yasher Koach for? For holy acts, for acts of goodness, for acts of kindness. That's what we say Chazaku Baruch and Yasher Koach for. Because we are taught to be kind, not just to be selfish and focus on the self, but quite the opposite, to be selfless and focus on the other. When we are selfless and we focus on the other, That's when we say Chazak Baruch. When a person taught some Torah, gave a nice speech, but wasn't just giving a good speech, he enlightened us with wisdom, we say Yasher Koach in a synagogue. When a person again received an aliyah to the Torah, and thanks to him now, I was able to listen to the Torah and to learn Torah, we say Yasher Koach. When a person gives tzedakah, we say Yasher Koach or Chazak Baruch. Because again, he did an act of goodness. I wish if there's something that we can change in society, I really wish that thing that we could change is compliment. Let's start with our children. Compliment our children, not just when they are wearing this pretty dress, and not just when they look so beautiful, and not just when they got an A in school, because that at the end of the day serves them and them only. But let's compliment our children much more when they do an act of goodness, an act of kindness. Let's make sure we give certificates and trophies for mitzvahs too, not just for personal achievements, for other achievements, for other oriented achievements. That's what Judaism teaches us through Yasher Koach and Chazak Baruch. Therefore, these terms are used, and are used in the right context, and context that we too ought to use these terms. All right, friends. So this concludes the questions that were sent to me. I'll refer just to this question here on the chat. Going back to the idea of marriage and of love. The question was, goals of human beings change. So do you think that's why there's so many divorces? We said that one of the three elements that we should think about when we are dating is whether our goals are aligned with the others, because if not, it will create much conflict down the road and could really lead to divorce. So the question here, which is an excellent question, is, well, people change and their goals change. So do you think that that's why there's so many divorces? That's a great question. I don't think there's a general reason of why divorces happen. I think it depends on each and every marriage. So I don't know if that could be a general rule. It could certainly contribute to a tear in a relationship, in any type of relationship, but certainly in spousal relationships, and maybe eventually lead to divorce. You're right, goals change. But I think that's also why, and call me crazy, but that's fine. I've been called crazy before, but I think that's why I would encourage people to get married as young as possible. And I'll tell you why. Because when you're young, you form your goals with your spouse to be. And then it's not just your goals. When you're older, you have your own personal goals. And then to try and align someone else with those goals instead of creating them together is much, much harder. And then also when you're older, again, that's when your goals can change more. When you're young and you're forming those goals together with someone else, then in a way, those goals can't really change just for you. They'll change for the spouse because they were created together with the spouse. So I think that minimizes the chances of the goals changing. But you're right, goals do change, people change, goals change. And in cases like that, that's when communication comes into play the most. It's when we have to have this open communication with our spouse. And if we truly love our spouse, then sometimes we'll have to either compromise our goals or eliminate them altogether. I think the idea of shalom bayit, of having harmony in the house, peace in the home, trumps all in Judaism. To the point that the Talmud says that one is even allowed to lie. I don't encourage that. But one is even allowed to lie in certain cases, very specific cases. Don't take this as a carte blanche to lie. But one is allowed to lie for the sake of the shalom bayit, of the peace in the home. So if that's the highest goal, then our personal goals should be sometimes compromised or eliminated altogether to ensure that this highest goal remains.